Good morning, everybody, from sunny Southern California. As you can see on screen right there, 74 degrees currently in my neck of the woods, and it is going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be like summertime here in San Diego, East County, of course. But look at this. At the end of the week, come Sunday and Monday, we got a rain shower coming. And look at the transition. You got 80 degrees today, about 80 tomorrow, the next day after that, and then just off a cliff it goes down to 67. Now that might seem warm to a lot of people, but after 83 degrees, that's kind of a transition. So the funny thing about living here is that this time of year you have to worry about this kind of weather during this time of year because it kind of throws your immune system through a loop, and you can often get a cold because of the temperature changes. It's really weird. It's like the weather's really nice and a lot of times it's April when this happens, and you'll be getting used to the warm weather, thinking it's summertime, your body's ready for that, and then all of a sudden it just goes down in the low 60s, maybe even the 50s sometimes, and you're like, whoa. Nights are also chilly, as you can see. It drops into the 40s a lot of times. Nights are always cold. I wake up every morning and put on my long johns, and then by about 9:30, 10 o'clock on a day like this, it's like, okay, get rid of that stuff. But anyways, so I didn't come here to talk about the weather. I came here to talk about basketball, of course, and I wanted to go over a couple of things that are going to be happening in today and in the near future. We have the trade deadline today, so this is your last chance to make some deals, and just go ahead and get those in anytime today. It doesn't matter if you get them in, by 3 o'clock today. That's when the free agents are signed. You can do it anytime. Just make sure you get your trades in, and then we can vote on them for the rest of the week. And if you want those trades to be retroactive to this week, if you want them, if the trade passes the vote and you want those players to be on your team this week, you should definitely let me know that, and then we'll make that happen. Another thing I want to look at here is the waiver deadline, which is March 24th. That's a month from now. In the future, that's going to be a little bit closer to the 1st of March, because I just want teams to have a little bit of I just want people to get that stuff done earlier, and so that there's less time before the end of the season to, shift and make some moves. As you know, in this league, you can trade with the free agent market, essentially, and we have a really good free agent market. So next year, I want that decision to happen a little sooner. Trade deadline will probably move up as well by a couple of weeks. And then the waiver deadline will be probably around the 1st of March. And the waiver deadline basically means that any player you waive, you do not free up salary for that player. So basically, there's going to be no waivers after that deadline. You're stuck with the players you have. All contracts are guaranteed. But the reason, the reason you might waive somebody at the waiver deadline is maybe you want to make some moves down the stretch, perhaps, and you're not really sure what you're going to do, so you might dump some big salary or something. That way, you have some cap space going into the final weeks of the season. You can totally pick up free agents down the stretch after the waiver deadline, but you have to have the money, of course, to do it. And when you can't waive players, you can't free up cash. So you want to do that at the waiver deadline in order to free up that cash. This year, that's going to be March 24th. Next year, it's probably going to be sometime around March the 1st. And then again, the trade deadline is going to be just shortly after the NBA trade deadline, probably sometime in mid-February, maybe around the 10th or so of February. But this year, it's the 24th. This league, as you know, is a little bit of a work in progress, but it's getting narrowed down now. It's getting pared down to what it's going to be. And next year, the only big change that I foresee coming, other than what I just mentioned, is that we're going to play 2 game periods per week. There'll be a Monday through Thursday game period, and then there'll be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday game period. And that will allow for a lot more variability in the results. It'll make things a lot more fun, I think. And plus, as you know, this year, everybody plays everybody each week. Well, that'll change next year. You will play just one opponent per game period. And I think we'll have probably 48 game periods, maybe 50. So you'll play 48 to 50 games next season. And next year, one other thing, maybe when it comes to the playoffs, I might limit the playoffs to only teams with records of maybe 48% or better win percentage for the play-in tournament. But we'll see about that. We'll talk about that in the offseason. Of course, there's other things going on. We got the cap. The NBA, of course, raises their cap space every year, and we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to totally follow the NBA percentages. This is a topic that will be up for discussion as we go along. Right now, next year's cap is set to be $221 million. As you can see right there, I'm highlighting it. That'll be next year's cap. So everybody's going to get an extra $11 million. And that will help you when it comes to keeping the players that you have on your roster. As you know, if a guy's under contract, it's an NBA contract. And so he might be making $33 million this year, but maybe next year he goes up to $36 million perhaps. And you'll have a handful of players like that. That'll be your core. They're going to go up by a certain amount every year. And I want to allow for that. I want you guys to be able to keep your best players, but it's still going to be challenging. The cap, that's part of this league, is that it's a challenge to manage a team, find the right combination of players that are going to help you win and succeed in this league. So now switching gears to this week's results. I finished the box scores this morning, and once again, the Carolina Copperheads were the best team in the league. As you can see, here's their box score. The Copperheads scored 131 points, and they are just basically taking over this league right now. They're starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. The Denver Nuggets, AJ Nardi's team, was giving them a run for their money. In fact, AJ's Denver Nuggets are still in first place in this league, but the loss of Victor Wembanyama is making it look like, they're definitely going to be overtaken by the Carolina Copperheads, who are run by Mark Jones. And that's a team that is led by Nikola Jokic, Evan Mobley, LeBron James, Franz Wagner. As you can see, these guys all performed well this week. Looks like the Copperheads, barring injury, are looking like the hands-down favorite to win the championship this year. Now, of course, you look at the Denver Nuggets, who came in second this week with a score of 125.33. The Nuggets were looking like they were going to be unstoppable early in the season and all the way up until recent times, with a core led by Victor Wembanyama, Domantas Sabonis, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then they just recently picked up Kevin Durant. They made a trade with the free agent market and grabbed Kevin Durant, and they're paying dearly for him, $51 million. De'Aaron Fox is their point guard. This is a very good team, but when they lose Victor Wembanyama, that's definitely going to hurt. What they did in response to that this week is they're going to move Sabonis over to the center position, and then Sohan is going to move into the power forward spot. And Sohan, I'm not sure what that's going to do for them. He's definitely not a substitute for Sabonis. Sabonis is definitely a substitute for Wembanyama, but this is going to be an issue as they need to get some good, solid production from the power forward position, and that is definitely going to be a challenge for AJ Nardi and his Denver Nuggets. I think that the Nuggets still have a chance, to at least get to the finals, but barring an injury to the Copperheads right now, I feel like Mark Jones's team is just running away with this thing. It's just all about health at this point. So long as everybody stays out there and nobody's out for the season, you could have some injuries, and during the random draw in the postseason, you will still benefit from your players' great regular season. That's fine. Even if the guy's kind of banged up a little bit down the stretch and they pull him here and there, you'll still be able to use the guy. But if he's out for the season, you just don't get to use him. And again, I don't know if a lot of you guys are keeping track or enough. I know you have a lot of fantasy leagues going on, and maybe this one's growing on you. I would hope so. The deal is we do a postseason playoff draw where I have a system where I roll dice and draw cards, and I'm drawing from the regular season game periods. This year, the game periods were 1 week long in duration. Next year, you're going to have the 2 game periods. Whatever the case may be, there's always going to be a card or a card in the deck, and there's a lot of cards. I'm going to use probably 104 cards. There will be a there will be at least 4 draws per game period in that deck. This year, we're going to drop the last 2 game periods of the season. That's the late season. That's when a lot of teams are holding players out. I don't want that to affect our playoffs. I can direct you guys to a good YouTube video where a guy did a study on this about, when you should do your playoffs in fantasy basketball. And it's really good. He really dove into the numbers, and I'll post that for you guys if you're interested. But trust me, the late season, the last couple of periods, the last 2 weeks of the season is not a good time to do your playoffs. It really skews the results, and not in a good way. A lot of superstar players are held out because teams are starting to make their plans for the playoffs, and I do not want that to affect our playoffs. But anyways, let's just quickly just go through some of the results, and then I'm going to wrap this video up. Got Carolina top spot this week. You got Denver in the number 2 spot, but of course they lost Wembanyama for the upcoming game period, so we'll see how that affects results next week. You've got the Fort Wayne Pistons stepping in 3rd place this week. They scored a very impressive 124.6 points, and it's because they're starting to get healthy. You got Giannis out there. You've got Anthony Edwards, of course. You got Banchero. That's the big one. Banchero is healthy now. And when they have those 3 guys, Edwards, Banchero, Giannis, and then you throw in, guys like Adebayo. Of course, Cade Cunningham had a big week this week. They have a core here that can help this team win. And, they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs, I think, especially in the play-in tournament. But when it gets to the Final Four, I'm not sure if they have what it takes to beat the Carolina Copperheads, and that's the team that they're going to have to go through to get to the championship. But moving along here, Houston Rockets, Williams' team came back this week. He's been struggling the last few weeks. He scored 118.46, and one of the reasons he's been struggling is a little bit of injuries and then just players not really playing up to their potential. But what happened this week was they had to move James Harden to the point guard. Now, of course, William didn't make that move. What I do when I do the box scores is I try to get you the full 240 minutes. And if I have to shift players around in order to make that happen, I will do that. I just look at their position eligibility. As it turns out, James Harden, he is a shooting guard for Williams' team, but he moved over to point guard, which got them more points because they were lacking minutes at the point guard position where they have a little bit of injury issues. You've got not James Harden, but Russell Westbrook as the starting point guard going into the changes. Before I made the changes, Russell Westbrook was getting his full allotment of minutes, 25 minutes, but they had nobody else to back him up. As you can see down here, you have Kyle Lowry out, and that hurt them because they basically depend on Russell Westbrook right now. And the reason for that is because they lost DeJounte Murray to injury a while back. So they're kind of in a pickle there. But the thing is James Harden can play the point. And so now James Harden is basically the last couple of box scores. I've had to switch him from shooting guard to the point because it gets the Rockets more points in the game. They would have scored something in the neighborhood of maybe 109 or 110. I made the little pivots for them, and now they got 118. So you guys don't always have to do this. You don't have to submit a lineup with a depth chart that's all perfectly thought out. I'm going to help your team get as many points as possible when I run these box scores. I hope that all made sense. If you have any questions, please tell me. Please text me. I would like to communicate with you guys as much as possible. I love this league. I think it's a really fun league, and I think it's better than any fantasy basketball league you could be in based on the fact that we play 48 minutes per position. You got a salary cap. I mean, come on, man. We're using the efficiency rating as our scoring right now, and to tell you a little bit about efficiency rating, it's a well thought out statistic. I was using something very similar to the efficiency rating before I switched to that, and basically every stat had a certain value, but I felt like I was overweighting some stats and maybe underweighting other stats. And I found out about this efficiency rating, and it really encapsulates everything that I want to do with this league. It takes into account missed shots, so field goal percentage, guys who take a lot of shots, Maybe they score a lot of points. Allen Iverson comes to mind. Great player, but honestly, he always kind of was a little overrated because even though the Sixers made it to one NBA championship, they lost that championship easily to the Lakers. And Allen Iverson, great player, but he always shot like in the low 40s. He wasn't a 3-point shooter because that wasn't a big part of the game back then. And, I mean, as good as he was, and everybody knew who he was, really exciting to watch. Fundamentally, not really the best superstar, that you could think of. Guys like Michael Jordan are in another league when it comes to guys who score a lot of points because he gives you so many other things. He gives you defense. He gives you rebounds. He gives you passing even. I mean, he will get some assists, even though, people say that Jordan wasn't much. Well, he did. He created for his teammates. He didn't shoot a lot of threes, and yet the guy's still at the top in all-time efficiency ratings, like in all-time ratings and per season. Michael Jordan was a special player, and I hated him back in the day because I was a Blazer. I'm still a Blazer fan, and Clyde Drexler was our big star, and we came really close to winning championships back in the early '90s. And there was that Michael Jordan, and there was always that debate. And of course, I had cognitive dissonance about it because I was just like, I'm a Blazer fan. No, we're gonna get them. We're gonna beat them. Jordan ain't that great, but you know what? And when I look back on it, I've long ago admitted Jordan is the best basketball player ever because he plays the position guard and he exceeds at that position. Here's the thing: bigger guys always score more points. They always do. Like in general, they get more rebounds. They're taller. They're just bigger. They get closer to the rim and get a lot more dunks. But when a guard can come in there and put up statistics that rival a big man, that's a special player. And with that being said, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who plays for the Denver Nuggets, AJ's team, he might very well be the MVP this year because one, he's playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are leading the Western Conference in record, and they look like a championship contender. And two, he plays a position where it's harder to dominate. It's harder to fill up the stat sheet. He's doing that. Nikola Jokic, of course, he's just unbelievably good. Great player, probably the best player in the NBA. But honestly, I'd have to give it to Shai Gilgeous this year simply because his team is on top of the standings and he's playing a position where it's rare to have a guy filling up the box score like he is doing. So, anyways, just moving on. Let's get back to Williams' team. Good week this week. Karl Anthony Towns is back on track, as you can see, 40 minutes with a 35.4 efficiency rating. That's outstanding. Jason Tatum had a huge week. James Harden with a big week. Scotty Barnes chipped in, and the Rockets came in third place. Next up was my team, the San Diego Saints. We've been plugging along. We're in third. I don't think we have any shot at beating either Denver or Carolina in the conference championship. But, maybe something happens. Maybe we get lucky. Basically, the Saints just need to have Zion Williamson healthy all the time, and they need Ja Morant and Tyrese Halliburton. They're great backcourt, but maybe a little overrated backcourt. They need those guys to be more consistent. As you can see, Ja Morant struggled a bit this week, 33 minutes played with just 16 in the efficiency category. And he saved his game with the last game of the week this week, last night, Sunday night's game. He actually saved what was going to be a really horrible week. The Saints are getting there. They've got some work to do. They need another big piece, and they're going to work through that. I'm going to work through that this offseason, see what I can do. I'm going to probably dump some salary here or there. There's going to be changes, of course, with contracts. There's things to think about there. A guy that I'm very excited about is Josh Giddey. I like Josh Giddey because he can play three positions. I could switch him to point guard. He could play the shooter or small forward. Right now, he's stuck behind Josh Hart, who's getting huge minutes. Josh Hart got 42 minutes this week, which left nothing for Josh Giddey. And you look at, Hart, of course, is worth it. He has an efficiency score of 31.6 in 42 minutes. That's great. But Josh Giddey is only getting 6 minutes in a reserve role, and he's got a 27 efficiency rating in 31 minutes per game. So we've got to find a spot for Josh. We've got to get him some minutes. We've already got Tyrese Halliburton at the 2, so it's kind of hard to decide between Giddey and Tyrese Halliburton. So, it's really hard to find playing time for this guy. He might move into the point guard position behind John Morant, where he'll get a few more minutes than he is getting behind Josh Hart. And right now, Chris Paul has been kind of struggling the last few weeks, so it's probably time to move Giddey ahead of Paul at the point guard position, backing him up. Chris Paul is going to remain on the roster because early in the season he provided us with some good play, and that helped us, win games early in the season. Then he kind of faded like you would expect from a 39-year-old that's playing guard. And so basically during the postseason playoff draw, he will come in handy at times. He will have good games. Giddey might be out or something. We'll get to that when the time comes. I'll try to make a lot of videos when the playoffs happen covering each game. And by the way, there will only be one game per day in the playoffs. Let's just roll through the rest of them here. Phil Johnson's Warriors are struggling, obviously, because Anthony Davis is out now. They've spent most of the season without Luka Doncic. And as you can see, Doncic right here, 19.5 efficiency rating this past period. That was 4 games played, and he averaged 28 minutes. So he's obviously not putting up the kind of efficiency numbers that you expect from Luka Doncic as he gets absorbed into that Laker system, the Laker roster. I think he will have his ups and downs now. He's clearly not the main piece anymore. I think the Lakers are going to treat him more like, one of the guys. He is a star, but it's not like they're desperate to have that one guy necessarily. They've also got, of course, LeBron James. It's hard to say what's going to happen with Luka. We will see. I'm gonna reserve my opinion there because I could be dead wrong. I think Luka is going to continue to be a dominant player in this league with a great efficiency rating, but I think his lower efficiency this week was just this last 2 game periods. The All-Star game created a game period that was 2 weeks long. I think that had something to do with it, and Luka just came off injury as well. But this is a team that had a great combination between Luka and Anthony Davis, but with all the injuries there, yeah, they've definitely lost a step, and they got a little bit of work to do there in San Francisco. He's got just about $2 million under the cap. That's nothing to work with much. There are some big salaries here they might be able to move in order to free up some cash next year. Perhaps Anthony Davis's salary becomes expendable. Donovan Mitchell, not for sure. Anthony Davis, if he's not going to be healthy the rest of the season, that's $43 million. And there's a lot of free agent talent out there that he could swap out for Anthony Davis, and he could make a serious playoff run. And remember, we have until a month from now to free up all the cash for a player we waive. At that point, you can't waive anybody anymore. All contracts are guaranteed. So, we'll see what happens over the next month. Phil Johnson might have a move or two in store for us that's going to kind of create a little bit of excitement for that team and a little concern for the front runners who would like to win that trophy. Moving along, the Poway Eagles, one of those rebuilds. They had a decent week this week for them, 108 points. They came in after the Warriors. They recently got rid of Damian Lillard and decided to go instead with Darius Garland. Garland wasn't too special this week, but it's a good future move. Basically, Lillard is going to be making in the 50s in terms of salary in the near future, and they have a much more reasonable contract with Darius Garland. And Garland was, quite frankly, playing at the same level as Lillard, just a little below him, but well enough to where it would justify freeing up about $15 million. So I think that the Eagles, they've got some exciting talent with Donovan Clingan. One guy that is still yet to go off is Reed Sheppard. That was their first-round pick. I think Reed Sheppard just needs to find his niche in the league. He's got so much talent. He's so much fun to watch, especially when he's shooting well, but his passing skills, his defense, I think he just needs to find his niche in this league. He needs to find a role, and once this guy sinks in, like with a roster, he finds his combination, the players that he works best with, I think you're going to see a lot more out of Reed Sheppard. Boston Celtics, another rebuild. They're trying to build around Alperen Sengun, who has a very low salary right now. That's going to change in the future, of course. Maybe they're paying a little too much for Siakam. They got Tyler Harrow, who's a little bit exciting. He's showing some promise. There's some pieces here, but a lot of work to do. They're up against the cap right now. They've spent all their money, but they're going to have a high draft pick next year. So who knows what can go down for Denny Copeland. Moving along, Jeff Just and his Philadelphia 76ers. They are at a race to the bottom trying to get that number one pick. And who they will take is anybody's guess. There's a couple players. There's the guard. I think it's Harper. I can't remember his last name right now, but I know that everybody's also talking about the names are escaping me right now. I don't want to get into it. I'll just point out that this team has, they've got a lot of young developmental type players. So it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen here. I mean, this is one of those teams, it's kind of a mess of prospects. And the same thing goes for Jacob Berry's Alberta Cowboys. Kind of a mess of prospects. They don't really have a guy that's really the running superstar. Trae Young, at his salary, $43 million, maybe a little bit of a disappointment. Just a jumbled up group of prospect type players. And they're definitely going to need to make a good rookie draft pick. Bring in somebody that just turns out to be great. They need a star. Both of these teams, Alberta, Philly, Boston, they all need stars. I would say even the Eagles need a star. These teams are, going to be depending on the free agent market and the rookie draft especially to try to uncover some hidden gems. And that's always a challenge. There's always trades. There's always the free agent market. I mean, it would be a challenge running these teams, I think. And we will see what happens with them and if those guys are up for that challenge. And I'd like to see somebody, seize the reins for one of these teams and really turn it around and show their savvy as a GM in this league, which is a challenge, but it's possible. Because of the salary cap, teams are going to have to let guys go that make a lot of money. Sometimes they're going to have to make tough decisions. A team like Carolina is coming up against a lot of big salary raises next year. So there's going to be some hard decisions made there, and it's going to dislodge some really good players so that guys like Alberta, Philly, Poway, and Boston can scoop those free agents up and then maybe combine that with a really good rookie pick. So at any rate, I'm going to wrap this one up now. Let's just go to the standings here. And you got the Denver Nuggets in first place. I convert the wins into NBA-type records. As you know, we all play each other, so kind of makes for crazy-looking records here. So I always convert it to the NBA. How many games they're playing in the NBA, I multiply their percentage, their win percentage by that number, which is, I think this week it was about 60 games. And there you have it. You got Denver at 48-12. Copperheads are 46-13. Saints are 43-17. Warriors at 39-21. Houston Rockets 35-24. Fort Wayne Pistons 33-26. That rounds out your playoff teams. The way the playoffs work, you got the play-in. Fort Wayne will play Houston in a best-of-5 series. Then the winner of that one goes against the Warriors. That's a best-of-7. The winner of that one then goes to the conference championships to play the number 1 seed. And then the number 2 and number 3 play each other in a best-of-7. The bottom teams in the standings, you got Poway leading all the losing teams with a record of 17-42. Alberta's at 14-46. Boston Celtics 12-48, and the Sixers at 8-51. And it looks like they are going to be the team with the number 1 pick next year. We don't do a lottery in this league. I don't even think I'm going to try to do a lottery in the future. So that's the story. Man, I am running out of breath. I'm running out of voice mostly. And I don't have much else to say. Hey, thanks for hanging in if you've gotten this far. If you have any questions on the league, feel free to send them my way, and I will be happy to provide you with the answers. All right, everybody, once again, from a beautiful, sunny Southern California, have a great day. Talk to you later.